Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Ask Jameen. I'm Nicci Willis, and
I'm Jameen.
And today it's a little bit more serious. It is the start of Black History Month, where we celebrate Black excellence, we celebrate Black history, and we celebrate, for us, our culture. So it's a really important month for us. So we decided to have a different type of Ask Jameen, and we want to talk about racism in real estate. And is racism in real estate still an issue? Let's talk about it. Here we go. Well, before we get started, I want to remind you to hit that subscribe button right down there in the corner. Also hit that bell. That way you are notified every time we upload new content. Babe, This is going to be a little deep. This isn't going to be our usual or my usual bubbly self.
We can get deep.
We can get deep, and we're going to get deep today. Because we want to talk about racism. We're going to talk about discrimination in real estate, and this is an issue that, if you're watching this, you already know it's still prevalent. So let's get into it. Let's talk about how it is prevalent. Let's talk about how this thing happens, and let's talk about some ways to remedy and how we as a whole of America can remedy this thing. All right, so let's start with some facts, because I know maybe if you're watching this, you might be saying, well, this is opinionated, or there's no facts behind this. But let's start with some facts so we can kind of lay a good foundation.
All right, let's do it.
So the first thing that you need to know is that discrimination was actually outlawed in 1968. It's called the Fair Housing Act. So it hasn't even been 100 years that discrimination has been outlawed here in the United States. As real estate professionals, we are taught all the laws, and we are taught the Housing Fair Act. And that is where we learn all the things that you can do that can be discriminatory. So just so that you guys know, discrimination was outlawed in 1968, and it's called the Fair Housing Act. Another thing is that I didn't know this, but as we were doing our research and looking this up, is that there are still some old deeds out there that actually say that African Americans can't own a particular property. So there are actual deeds out there that are still, if they haven't been sold recently, if they were purchased, prior to 1968, maybe, it might be a deed that's just been passed on in the family, et cetera, et cetera. Guys, that's still out there right now.
Yeah, I actually had a closing, not here, but in Ohio, to where the title company had to redo the deed because the property was like a one owner. So it hadn't been sold since 1968. Actually, on the deed, they had to switch the deed on there. In addition to it, it's saying that you couldn't sell the property to African American. It spelled out the whole 2/3 of a human thing. It was like terrible. So it's not as much here because this is a newer city, but especially the South, the Midwest, and places where housing is a little bit older. If you have a property that's one owner or it's been in the family and hasn't been sold, you can actually see it on the deed. So it makes it a lot more real when you see it like in person.
Very true. Very true. Another thing is redlining. Now, if you have never heard about redlining, it's actually the process where people who would otherwise be approved for financing or approved for a loan actually get denied because they live in a certain part of the city or a certain neighborhood. So that is called redlining. Redlining is also illegal. And it obviously is also unethical, but it is illegal. What had come about with redlining were that people in maybe lower income areas would go and say, hey, I'm ready to buy a house. I have the right credit score. I have the income, et cetera, et cetera. They would go to get approved to purchase a home in a certain area, and their loan would get denied. Mm-hmm. So that is called redlining, and that is also illegal. So I just want to lay those foundations, that base ground for you guys to really understand what has been put in place in terms of race and racial discrimination. I want to be very clear. We're talking about race and racial discrimination. There are things in place when it comes to disability discrimination, gender, family, religion, marital status, all that. There are many things that have been put in place for other diversities, but in this particular episode we are talking about racism. So that Fair Housing Act and then the redlining are two of them that really directly affect racism. All right, so let's talk about it. Is racism in real estate still an issue? So we already know that yes, it is. Have we experienced it? Yes. And do we know many stories? Yes. And I want you guys to stay tuned so that you can hear more of these stories that we're going to share with you. Again, y'all, it's not all doom and gloom, but this is something serious. And I hope that during this episode, we can educate you and also help inform you guys on what happens out there and how to protect yourself and even how to protect your clients, etc. All right, so let's keep going.
So racism is still an issue in real estate. Yeah. It is, but it's gotten, of course, much better. Yeah. It's gotten much better. I think that we've just evolved and progressed as a, I don't want to say a generation, but just as a culture. Like the things are changing. We had our first African American president, and things are a lot more progressive, period. But the main thing was, the laws that have been put in place, because it was legal parameters to carry out the blatant racism. So now that those are away, you got rid of the legal thing. Okay, it's not legal to discriminate anymore, but then you have the underhanded or things that you don't see, and that's some of the things that we still have to deal with today. So one of the things that we still have to deal with, and one of the reasons why we are realtors and we do a lot to make ourselves available, we try to help a lot, is the lack of representation.
Absolutely.
So the lack of representation. So if you look at any board of realtors and look at the amount of, right now we're just talking about African Americans. Like if you look at the percentage of African Americans, it's just a low amount compared to other races. Yeah. So there's a lack of representation of people of color in the real estate industry, period. And so that's one of the things that I feel like that we do our part in showing the representation, because you don't have to always work with the same race or the same kind or something like that, but if you have somebody that you can relate to, it helps out a whole lot. And if for those who want to support the African American community and entrepreneurs and things like that, here's your chance. Yeah. We're one of many, but we're right here. So the major thing is just the lack of representation. And that goes from realtors to loan officers to, the whole real estate
property
industry.
managers.
Yeah, property managers.
Yeah.
Things like that. It's still to this day, and I'm a property manager, so I know firsthand, it is so easy to discriminate against somebody in lending on the renting side.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, property's been rented. Oh, the application was denied.
and not get caught for it.
Absolutely.
I mean, let's call a thing a thing. If someone is, if you want someone to drop off, their application, you're seeing who they are. You're seeing them face to face. So you don't get that veil, if you will, if someone were to, just apply online, where you're just, looking directly at credit scores and income and things like that. So, and then it's the, like you said, it's the underhanded things that, frustrate me. And just, it makes me want to have conversations like this to help people understand, that, you even, saying, oh, well, it's already rented out when it's not, is a form of discrimination.
Absolutely.
It's a form of discrimination. And we as a collective, we have to stop doing that. And we have to call people out. We have to call people on the carpet for it. And we have to say that this is unacceptable.
Absolutely.
Unacceptable. Keep going, babe. I'm sorry.
So, no, it's fine. So for me, it's like, this is one of the things that don't have anything to do. I love real estate, but it doesn't have anything to do with money. The fact that I'm in a position to give somebody who is qualified a fair chance at renting a house or renting an apartment or renting a townhouse, that alone is one of the reasons why I do it, why we do this. Especially you purchasing a house too, you found somebody that's qualified, has a good credit score, should get a mortgage. They deserve to get in the house just as much as anybody else. It's not about,
you earned it.
It's not about, the hookup because this is my people or anything like that.
Yeah.
A person that's qualified and deserves to either rent or buy a home or sell a home for that part.
Yeah.
Is able to without the extra challenge or the extra hurdle of being discriminated against.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we do it, and that's one of the joys that I get of being a realtor, a property manager, and an investor for that part.
Yeah. I think also too, when you're talking about lack of representation, I've said this before in many conversations that being Black or being African American or being Black is not about a color, right? We are a culture. And as a culture, we come with different nuances, with different experiences that have shaped who we are as a culture. And when people don't want to understand a culture, it creates so many issues. If you are a part of the African American community, please, I want you to go ahead and comment. But when it comes to money, right, with the African American community, a lot of people, we've grown up in different environments that say, you didn't talk about money in the household. Right? Or, maybe you paid your bills and that was it. And all you were taught was, to have a savings. But, were you taught about, building wealth through real estate? Like some of that for many of our households is, this is first generation, building wealth through real estate and things like that. And so if you think about, first generation, being the first person in your family to actually purchase a home, and all of the the overwhelming knowledge that you have to have in order to do that, it can be very, very intimidating, and it can be almost to a point where you don't even want to do it. We have conversations where people say,
Just rent because
they just rent, and that no one has taken the time to explain it. No one has taken the time to explain it to me. So you talk about lack of representation. This is also why it's so important for us to and why it's so important for us to do what we do, and why we're so passionate about it. Because, you know, for some of us, this is a generational thing. We're breaking generational curses when you're talking about, you know, purchasing a home for the first time in generations for a family. You know, where you're talking about, you know, someone buying their first investment property, right? That they are going to be able to pass along to their children, or they're going to use this to, you know, pay for their child's college. I mean, it's huge. It's huge. And we, you know, because we're in the African-American community, I feel a sense of ownership with that, and saying, you know what, like, you know, that's why we need to have seminars. That's why, you know, we are, you know, write books and do articles and all the things to help educate, and not just our community, but educate those around us who are not familiar with the African American community, who, you know, you might call it, you know, you might call it one thing, but we'll call it something else because we know where we've come from. So that's another little rant, but it's very, very important to have representation in this industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's from everything from realtors to loan officers to, you know, even when you're going to think about purchasing new construction and you have a builder rep that, you know, that you work with, it just helps. It's just like looking at a crayon box. If you see all gray and blue crayons, there's no diversity, you know, there. So it's really important. So the second thing is, not only is racism in real estate still an issue on the consumer side, it's actually an issue on the professional side. So what I mean by that, even realtors such as us face discrimination, racism in our industry. For me, I've been in real estate for over 20 years, and I can remember, you know, I have so many stories of hints of racism, hints of discrimination that I've had to deal with, just me personally in my career. And I'm not, I haven't been in real estate as long as a lot of people have been in real estate, and those who were in real estate before us, I can't imagine the things that they had to go through. But just an example is, you know, when I buy an investment property, it's not blatant racism, but it's like when I come to a closing, they're like, where's the buyer?
They want to know where the buyer is.
And there's like, where's the agent? And I'm like, it's me. And it's me. You know, it's like they're shocked that I'm the agent and I'm the buyer, or, you know, an investment in. And it's like, that's not preventing something, but it's like, it's almost like an underhanded, like, oh,
it's a backhanded
thing. Like, oh, I'm shocked that you have knowledge to, you know, do this transaction or
and then you get some, like then you get the questions, the qualifying and the clarifying questions that they're trying to make it make sense in their own head. That, you know, my husband and I are sitting at the table signing these papers for an investment property. They're trying to make it make sense, right? It's because it's unbelievable for them. And that's, call a spade a spade.
Right. Yeah.
Call a spade a spade. Let's keep talking about it.
So another thing is, and just to be 100%, you know, honest and candid, one of the reasons, other than I love this city and this is a place where I always wanted to move, one of the reasons that we relocated here was it's less racism. You know, it's more diversity here. Las Vegas is a place that people come from somewhere else and they move here. So you have a lot of different races, a lot of different nationalities. There's a lot more liberal. Versus the South and the Midwest is still not as progressive. You know, it's still the good old boy things go on. So one of the examples is, not only are you trying to help your client who may be Black or African American or minority, so when you submit a contract, even like, back in the day, when you submit a contract, a lot of times you could face more scrutiny on your contract. So you're representing a buyer trying to get a contract accepted. And a lot of the underhanded racism is your contract being looked at with more scrutiny than someone else that's not Black or not a minority. Like, oh, you don't know what you're doing, or is your buyer qualified, or did you write the contract correctly? Those are things that we still have to deal with, in this industry and this day of age. I haven't had it, lately, but not, 10 years ago. That's something I still had to deal with, in this industry of, scrutiny, or do you know what you're doing, or did you write this contract right, and things like that. And that affects your performance of the buyer of whatever race that you represent. So that's definitely something that's still, a challenge and issue that we face today.
Absolutely. Technology.
Yeah.
Technology has, it's a blessing and a curse. If you think about, those who like have rings, the little doorbell ring, or, those that just have cameras in their home. When you go and do a showing, and they're able to see every single buyer that comes through or that comes in. And they're able to pass judgment on every single buyer that comes through their home. Unfortunately, that is real. It's real. And so what we're using this platform to do is to call people on the carpet on it and say, stop doing it. Stop doing it. You have to know, if the Willis team brings a buyer, they are more than qualified. We have done our due diligence, and we are professionals. And, we cannot assume that somebody is more or less professional because of the color of their skin, or that someone is more or less qualified because of the color of their skin. We have to stop. We have to stop doing that. And give people a fair shot.
Right.
If we are supposed to look at a contract for what it is, then judge the contract for what it is, and hold every contract to that same ruler, to that same, rule of thumb. It doesn't matter if, and I'm veering off of race, but it doesn't matter if the person's married or not, if they have children or not, if they're disabled or not. Look at the contract for what it is. And if it's great terms, awesome, wonderful. If it's not great terms, okay, that's fine. But to base anything off of someone's external appearance is discrimination.
Yeah,
and we gotta stop.
Unfortunately, technology can be used to enable the underhanded racism like that. And it's not just technology; it could be nosy neighbors.
Yes, nosy neighbors. Remember the article, or it wasn't even an article. It was a full-fledged video that came out of the real estate agent who, it was a Black man, showing his client, another Black man, a home in a suburban area. And so, he had the combination to the lockbox, did all the things, you go in, and this is, what he and I both do. We have the combination of the lockbox. We go in, we show the client, we're there maybe 15 minutes. If they really like it, we might be there a little bit longer. But, we're showing the ins and outs of the home. They come out of the home and they are met with guns in their faces. Because some neighbor has called and said that there is a home invasion, knowing that this home was on the market.
Right.
And so, what happened in the rest of the video was, the client was clearly upset. Of course, he didn't want the house, obviously. because who wants to live next to those types of neighbors, right?
Yeah.
But it's traumatizing.
Yeah, we joke about the word triggering, but
no, that's triggering
and traumatizing. You just imagine the stress of when you're showing a house to a buyer, or you're just working, period. You're being professional. This is sales. You have to point out the features in the home and things like that. When you have to deal with something like that, it just throws you off.
It ruins your whole entire day.
Yeah, and it's traumatizing for the buyer, and it's embarrassing too. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think that's a lot of the things that, even with this matter and other matters, is we're not mindful of the differences of each other and what we have to deal with. I think that an agent or a colleague would be like, well, you didn't do anything wrong, you should be okay. But if that doesn't happen to you, or has never happened to you, it's a difference. And to be honest, there's nothing to say that exact same situation won't happen again. And so that's what we deal with, and that just happened that was 2021.
That was very recent.
Yeah, like towards the end of 2021. So
that was recent. Yeah. And again, guys, like, we don't want this to be doom and gloom, but we have to face reality and what it is, and by facing reality, we know that there's some things that we can work on. So to all of our people that are in the industry, make sure that that you are not doing anything illegal, but also those underhanded, backhanded things. Let's stop doing that. Okay? Let's, judge contracts the way they're supposed to be judged, and, help people, help people that have earned the right to purchase. Let's help them. Let's help them. Let's make sure that they see all of their options, not just the ones that you think would fit, right? Let's make sure that, we're not steering people. I mean, all the things.
The definition of steering.
That is the definition of steering, yes. Let's make sure that we are doing our best to help everyone that has worked hard, their hard-earned money, right? To own, to those who want to build wealth in real estate. Let's make sure that we're not hindering those that want to build wealth here, especially in America. Now, those of you who are on the consumer side, we want to give you a resource to help you if, in fact, you feel that you have been a victim of discrimination. So what we want you to do is that you can file a complaint with your local real estate division. We will leave that link below for Nevada. But you can also file a complaint with HUD. And baby, you want to explain how they can do that?
Yeah, so HUD is on a federal level. They basically oversee lending, housing laws, those laws that were put into place. A lot of times HUD is the person that enforces those. So to file a complaint, the best thing you can do is go to hud.gov, and you can file a complaint via phone. We're going to put a link in the video with the number to where you can call and file a complaint. You can submit a claim by email, and you also, if you want to use good old snail mail, you can actually mail a complaint too. But the easiest thing to do is to go to hud.gov. You can email a complaint in, and you can actually pick up the phone and call and talk to somebody about your complaint and your issue. They have a lot of resources on hud.gov too that deals with discrimination and different things that you can do. Unfortunately, racism and discrimination is something that is still real and still goes on, but these are things in place that we can do to combat it and to continue to move forward.
All right, guys. Well, we thank you guys so much for joining us. This was a little bit serious. Next week, we will be talking about this similar topic, but on the seller's side. That's right. It definitely happens on the listing side as well. So we want to talk about that and some ways to remedy that as well. So definitely stay tuned. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and hit that bell, and we will let you know every time that we upload new content. But in the meantime, you guys take care, be safe, take care of each other, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.